Welcome back to Captain Crypto's Compass. Now, a couple of you have asked me, Martin, how do we draw support and resistance? And in this video, I'm going to show you a beginner level intro of how we can effectively identify key support and resistance levels using candlestick charts. So buckle up, this is going to be a fantastic intro. If you don't know how to draw support and resistance, this is how I do it. This is my personal style and it works very well. I'll show you two different ways you can draw it using horizontal lines, or even my preferred way of drawing support and resistance using rectangular boxes and to highlight specific key areas.
Hi, I'm Martin. I'm the founder of Captain Crypto's Compass. I'm a trader and a professor at the Financial Freedom Academy. I am passionate about helping you to achieve financial freedom through the art and the gift of trading. I will be providing you with actionable technical analysis and insights on your favorite cryptocurrency projects to help you make better and more informed decisions. If you're ready to take your trading to the next level, you're in the right place.
So in order to demonstrate how I would approach this finding support and resistance levels on a chart, I've gone ahead and opened up the 4-hour Bitcoin chart. And what I want us to identify, and what I want you to start training your eyes, is to identify key pivot points in the market. And what I mean by key pivot points is, where can we see a sharp V-shaped recovery or a sharp V-shaped rejection? You know, where do we see price finding resistance and pushing down, and where do we see price finding support and pushing up? And what we oftentimes see is it creates these patterns for us, these pivot tops and pivot bottoms. So that would be a classification of a V-shaped recovery, a pivot bottom, or a pivot top, where it creates a high and gets rejected from that. So if you imagine looking at a chart like this, I want you to train your eyes to start seeing these V-shaped recoveries and V-shaped rejections, sharp rejections in the chart. And we'll use these pivot points, these pivot lows, which forms a V, and these pivot highs, which forms a triangle pattern. And we're going to use this and to identify these key support and resistance areas. So that's what I want you to do. This is the object and the purpose of this video is I want us to train our eyes to see these pivots, and then I'm going to show you how price reacts to key support and resistance levels. Now, before I go ahead and draw all these levels for you, and I'll show you how I do that, there are a couple of rules and a couple of things we need to understand. And the first one is we just need to talk about candlestick patterns. And I want you to realize, can you read and do you understand what a candlestick chart represents? What does a candle represent? Why are some candles green and why are some candles red? And this is very important. When we're looking for support and resistance, I want you to be able to understand and identify candlesticks. I want you to be able to read them and train your eyes to start seeing these specific moves. But let's zoom in here, and I want to just talk about what makes a candlestick green and what makes a candlestick red. And the answer to this question is very simple. So we need to understand, we see a candle. We see that it has a wick to the upside, we see it has a body, and we also see that it has a wick to the downside. What does this mean? It simply means that the candle itself, if it opens at a specific range and it closes at a higher price, the candle will be green. So what that means is we have an opening price and a closing price that shown by the candle body. This facilitates the candle body on the inside. That's the opening price and the closing price. And what the wick tells you is that during this specific trading session, so here every candle is set to 4 hours. So this candle represents 4 hours worth of trading range. The wick tells us how far the range went during the session. So if the price opened at this level here, bottom of the candle body, and we see a wick to the downside, what that means is during this trading session, price actually went down to that specific wick. But the bulls reclaimed it. The candle started trading above the opening price of that specific session, and it closed above the opening price. And that makes a green candle. It shows you that price is higher than the price it opened, and the wick tells the story of that specific trading session. We can see the lows of that trading session and we can see the highs of that specific trading session. And that is how we read candlesticks. That's what it represents. Opening and closing price. If the closing price is higher than the opening price, it prints a green candle.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the content so far. Please remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications.
And the reverse is also true. If we see a red candle, what that implies is that the top of the body of the candle was the opening price of this specific trading session, this 4-hour trading session, and the price closed lower than it opened. So we can see there's the opening price and the closing price, and the wick tells the story. How high did the price actually go during this specific trading session? So the wicks tell the story, and the candle body shows you the opening and closing range. And if the closing range is lower than the opening range, the candle is red. And if the closing price is higher than the opening price, the candle is green. So this is important to understand. Now, taking that into account, what we want to find with these pivot highs and pivot lows are specific areas where we are looking for confluence in the market. We want to see areas that the market respects, and we want to see areas that the market is rejecting, the resistance and support. And what we're looking for is, looking at our candlesticks, we're looking for these pivot points, these V-shaped recoveries, and then we're looking for at least 2 to 3 touch points at these levels. And we're going to give more weight to the candle body closes than we are to the wicks of the candles. So if I want to draw a support area over here, I can do that in 2 ways. I can either draw a horizontal line. So the shortcut on PC is Alt-H on the chart. So I'm going to look at this area here, and we can see, one, this area is important because I can see a pivot low. I can see this V-shaped recovery coming in here. So I want to identify key areas in the market then, that is levels that the market is respecting. And I'm going to pay more attention to the bodies of the candles than the wicks. We can see here, this wick came all the way back down, but we see the body closed at a specific level. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touch points. So I'm going to mark this area as a key support level in the market. And all I'm going to do is press Alt-H, and it's going to draw a dashed line on the chart for you. Yours might be a solid line. It doesn't matter. You can change the look and feel of this line and the color to suit your own preference. Mine is white because I am on a black background. So I'm going to mark this level as a support level for me. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to look at these pivot highs, and I'm going to see, well, where did the price respect? And what I'm looking for is a couple of touch points here, the candle bodies. I want to see the candle bodies, and we can see here that we have 2 candle bodies creating a V-shaped resistance area here. So this would be a area of importance of resistance for me. So I'm going to mark that. So just by looking at these pivot highs and pivot lows, it gave us a range for price action during this specific trading session. I can treat this area at the top as resistance, and I can treat this area at the bottom as support. Now, it's important to realize that support and resistance, there is a change of character moment in the chart, and this is what I'm going to show you now, is how to identify these flips. When does a support level flip to a resistance level, and when does a resistance level flip to a support level? And the answer to that is very simple. Once we break a support level and hold a candle body above that specific resistance level, it flips to support. And when we break a support level and have a candle body close below that specific support level, that level flips to resistance. So we have these flips in the market where resistance flips to support and where support flips to resistance. And I'm going to show you how I identify and use these levels then. But the level itself remains of importance. It's just a matter of clarifying whether this level is now resistance or whether this level is now support, and vice versa. And I'm going to show you how powerful this is once you actually understand this concept. So we've marked these levels for us now, but this is actually not my preferred way of marking support and resistance. So you can use horizontal lines, but what you also need to realize is that the market doesn't truly respect a line. All of these areas that you're marking for yourself are zones. We can see here that the market did respect this resistance area here, but it didn't reject it exactly at this line. You can see it traded a little bit above that and then got rejected. So in order to account for these zones in the market, my preferred way of marking support and resistance is actually using rectangular blocks. And I'll show you how I do that. So let's go ahead and let's delete these two lines. And I'm going to show you how I use the rectangles to show these areas for me. So now, when I draw a rectangle, I also want to start the rectangle at the body closes, the bodies of the candles, but I also want to take into account this range, the wick of the candle, because obviously price traded into this zone here and got bought up and defended by the bulls, but this area is still an important area for me to take note of, where a horizontal line doesn't necessarily give you that range, that wick range all the way to the bottom. So what I do to combat this is when I mark a specific support zone, I start the top of the rectangle at the candle body closes, finding my 2 to 3 touch points on the candle body closes, and then I actually draw the rectangle all the way to the bottom of the wick. And I'll just draw that to the right. So now this rectangle is showing me there is an area and a zone of support based on this candlestick pattern that I have here. And then what I like to do is I like to color code my specific rectangles that I draw for myself. If it's a support zone, I make it green. So then I'll just change it to green so it pops out. And if it is a resistance area, I make that red. So if I want to draw a resistance area here for this specific, these pivot tops here, I'm going to look for 2 to 3 touch points on the bodies of the candles, and I'm going to draw it all the way up to the longest wick, and this will be my resistance zone. So I'm going to draw that out, and I'm going to mark this as resistance for me. So now if we look at our support and resistance zones, we see this area here that is treated as resistance and an area that is treated as support, and we can see that Bitcoin was trading range bound, meaning sideways up and down between this key resistance area and key support area, coming up into resistance, facing resistance, getting rejected, coming back down to support, finding support, trading up into resistance, and trading down into support, up into resistance, and finally here is the trying to break this resistance. Now, this is probably one of the most important things that I want you to understand when it comes to support and resistance, is that these levels change. We need to be adaptable to the market. If we have a resistance level, and the market will try and test that level, or it will respect it. And here's how I identify when exactly a support level is flipped to a resistance, or when a resistance level is flipped to a support zone. Now here we can see that Bitcoin has been range bound, respecting the resistance, respecting the support, and here Bitcoin is trying to break out of this specific range. And we see green vector candles into the resistance, red vector candles rejecting, trying again and being rejected again. And what I want you to notice here, that there is no candle in this resistance area that closed a body above this specific zone, this resistance zone, and therefore this area can still be treated as resistance. Now here, when Bitcoin came back down into the support zone and tried yet again to break this resistance, here's where we see the magic happen. As soon as the candle trades into a specific resistance area, what I like to do is I like to change the color of this specific zone to orange. And what I've trained my mind to think of is this area is being challenged. This resistance is being challenged. And what I'm waiting for a candle body to close above this specific area or inside of it. Because once we have a candle body close inside of a specific resistance area or a level, the odds are that we are going to start treating this resistance as support and not as resistance again. So here, once we start trading in this range, we can see it pushes up into resistance, and we have our first candle body close inside of our resistance area. And this is a clue that this area might flip to support. And we can see that Bitcoin pushes higher back into our previous resistance area. So what we could have done here is taking those two body candles and the wicks, and we can mark this area as a next potential resistance area for us during this trading session. So as Bitcoin is moving up into this first resistance area, we see support holding, this area is being challenged, and it pushes higher into the next resistance area marked by this red rectangle. We can see a rejection. And what I love to see is when we get to a rejection at a resistance zone, pulling back to our previous resistance area and support holds like we do here, we can mark this as a support zone. Not a resistance zone anymore, but now it flips from the orange to a green area, support zone.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the content so far. Please remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications.
We can see that the same thing happens here. It finds support in the zone that we've highlighted. It pushes up higher into resistance, and we have our first candle body close inside of this resistance area. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this as orange as we're challenging this resistance. We can see it consolidate for a couple of hours in this resistance zone, and as soon as we break above it and hold a candle above this resistance zone, we can treat this as support. And we can keep on doing this for every single resistance that's flipped to support and the other way around. Now here, we've marked this area for us as an area of importance just based on this specific market structure. But we can see as Bitcoin breached up top here, we can highlight the next resistance zone for us, the candle bodies and the candle wicks. We can treat this area as a resistance zone. Just going to mark that for us. This is what I would do as red. And we see that we cannot hold a candle body inside of this resistance area. We might ask ourselves, what is the next logical step? If resistance is respected, how far down can the price go? And we have our previous support level highlighted here, and we can see that Bitcoin pushed up into this resistance area and broke down all the way to our previous support, the previous market structure, holding this as support. And I'll just keep on doing this the whole time. Keep these areas. It will be important as long as the range is within where we're trading. Now here we have our next one. We can see we have another resistance area here, support area here, and another resistance area at the top. So I'll go ahead as I'm doing this. I'll mark this area for me there. Want to get the wicks in. That's my next resistance area, and it comes back all the way down. So we can see trading into resistance, coming back to support, the zone here, creating a higher low, pushing back into resistance. We're not clearing the resistance, respecting that, coming all the way back down yet again to our support zone. Try one more time and we fail. And as soon as we break a support level, here is another key point that I want to highlight for us. Here we see that support is respected once, twice, a third time. Now, the more a level is tested, the higher the likelihood is that that specific support or resistance zone will be broken. And here we see an example of that. It finds support 1, 2, 3 times, and the fourth time it came back in. The bulls tried to respect this level. We can see that large wick to the downside there, but it got rejected. And as soon as we have a candle body close below this specific area, we can start treating this previous support as resistance. And I'm just going to pull this out to the right here for you so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to change the color from green now because we've broken it as a support level to a resistance level marked in red, and we can see something fascinating happen. So I'm going to pull the previous areas that we highlighted here. I'm going to pull that to the side so we can see what Bitcoin is doing and where it's trying to find support. So let's highlight these and pull these to the side. So come back into our first support zone. We can see that it is initially respected, comes back and pushes back into our resistance, creating a lower high. So we can see the trend is down. It comes back down, breaks this support zone. We have a candle body close below it. So we can start treating this as resistance. So let's mark that as red now. And then as we push into it, we can see that the resistance is there. The support zone is at the bottom here. We're challenging this resistance area. We're holding it. We're trying to hold it. So I'm going to mark this as orange for me because this is an area of trying to find support. We can see we reject, come back down, push up into our previous support zone that is now resistance. And lo and behold, what do you see? We see we're trading back into the resistance, coming back down, trying to find support in this area here. It breaks it. As soon as we have a candle body close, this becomes resistance. And then as we break this, where's the next logical level? Well, we highlighted this area as a key level of support just based on this market structure over here. And we can see that Bitcoin came all the way back down to our previous support and it pushed all the way up higher. And here we see it taking out this resistance again, pushing into the resistance, trying to find support, pushing into resistance. And there's our first candle closing inside of this resistance zone. So I'm going to change this to orange again. And here we see candle body closes in this zone. And this acts as a springboard for the next move. And now, as we get this push higher, we can see we break clean above this previous resistance. So we can treat this as support. So let's change this to support. And it came back down to retest the support structure here. See that wick? Broke up to the upside, came back down, tested this as support. The candle body closes above this level, and that facilitates a push higher. Now, in this move, you might ask yourself, well, where is the next logical step that resistance will enter? Well, let's just look left to the chart. We can see we highlighted these pivot highs on the left-hand side as key resistance. Let's pull these two. Look how beautiful that is, right? Pull this to the right. And we see that Bitcoin went all the way back up to this previous resistance area and got rejected once again. And we can see we did not have any candle body closes in the zone or above it. It's respecting this resistance area, and it came all the way back down to our previous support zones. So let's just pull these to the right here, and we can see Bitcoin came back down, tried to hold support here, rejected that, so we can change this to a resistance. Came back all the way back down and found support in our previous support zone. Pushed back lower, a little bit lower, but started holding support in this zone. So we can see how taking this level to level and being able to identify when a resistance level is flipped to a support zone and when a support zone is flipped to a resistance zone gives you these high probability areas in the chart just by marking them using the candle bodies and the wicks with at least 2 to 3 touch points on pivot highs or pivot lows. Shows you key market structure. It guides you and shows you where you should pay attention. What are high probability areas of rejection and what are high probability areas of support? Hope you found this helpful. This is one of the ways how I draw support and resistance, clearly using pivot highs and pivot lows. Just key market structure, and you can see just how effective this method is. Peace and love. Happy trading.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, hit the like button, hit the sub button, and hit the bell notifications. Also, remember to click the link in the description below to join my mailing list, where I'll be sending you free emails and trading videos, and also market report updates weekly to help you stay ahead of the herd. As always, this community would not be the same without you, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Peace and love. See you next time.